welcome to the Honest Indies podcast, a place where we have honest conversations about our love for indie games with the people who make them. I am your host, Chris. My pronouns are they and them, and I am so thrilled to already be talking to someone who has many titles, from studio lead to creative director to doctor, Miko Charbonneau. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm Miko. My pronouns are she, her, and I am so excited to be here. I've been really excited about Honest Indies since I first found out about what you're doing, and I'm really honored that you wanted to chat with me today. So I'm happy to say anything that could be helpful to other indies. A lot
Which
of our, experience has been lived sometimes painfully, so it's good to get the words out there sometimes.
Yeah, and being helpful to other indies is something that I've definitely witnessed you do just online in general and with your Twitch streams. I know you were posting recently about planning another one and like what kind of dev stuff people would want to see. So that's awesome. That seems like a core part of what you do. In addition to making games, congrats. You are here from Pretty Smart Games as of less than 2 weeks ago, released your latest game, The Spirit Lift, and I'm about 11 hours into it and have been loving it. So just congrats to
Oh,
you and the
thank you.
rest of the team on getting another game out the door. And I hope that the reception has been really good so far.
Yeah, it has. I think that we're very proud of the Spirit Lift. We actually it is about a magical elevator. It's a roguelike deck builder about a magical elevator in a haunted hotel. But we also named it the Spirit Lift because we came up with the idea when, it feels like the last few years have been rocky for everybody in various ways. That it was definitely a time where we thought we needed a project that would lift our spirits up. And then we thought, oh, this
Oh,
is fun.
I
We're
love
going to
that.
name it that. We're going to make that the core of like this team, what we're doing. And it also happens to fit with what's going on in the game. And I think typically there's always a lot of emotions around launch. You kind of have to hope for the absolute best case, but be prepared for the worst. And I feel like very relaxed after this launch. I think
Good.
it's been very heartwarming to see people enjoying the game, and I think that yeah, we're really lucky. We're very happy with how it's been received.
Good. Well, I hope that those vibes continue and more people just keep finding and playing and reviewing the game, because I learned recently about the kind of different Steam review thresholds. If you need at least 10 before something can be positive, and then 50 and 500. And I know you're past that 50, but let's get it past 500 too.
Yes, I hope so. That's kind of the next thing is like so much effort going into the marketing and the community side. And we still have a few free upgrades we really want to do to the game. And we're pretty sure people will want them based on what we've heard people talking about. So we're kind of, working on that too. But yeah, I mean, that is our goal is like, whatever threshold you hit, you always want the next one. So it can feel like it takes forever. So we're both extremely proud of how fast we got to 50, and also very hopeful for the next big milestone to come.
Awesome. We're going to talk a lot more about the Spirit Lift, but I want to rewind, maybe like a VHS tape that you used to experiment on people in a horror setting, and just go way back to earlier in your life. What is one of your earliest or most formative gaming experiences, whether it was from when you were a kid or from 10 years ago? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I've been gaming since like, being a toddler practically. I think that unlike other people around my age bracket, I actually have a more old school like feel because like even though the Nintendo the first NES was like kind of a big deal for me also. My dad was an early adopter and so he had like the Commodore 64, the Amiga, the Coleco. We didn't have an Atari, we had a Coleco. And IBM, like, Apple IIe. Like, we had all these, like, the very beginning of personal computing,
Wow.
like, computers set up. And so I found growing up that, like, I kind of knew the games that maybe the generation above me played that were, like, the first PC gamers. And I really liked, like, the Sierra adventure games and, like, these kinds of, like, text parser games, like Maniac Mansion kind of stuff. And, that was kind of like my first introduction to gaming. And then, yeah, with consoles, like that just sort of naturally progressed as well. But I think maybe in high school was when I had like the most emotional times outside of being a kid, when I got like my first PlayStation and I played like Final Fantasy 7 and Xenogears for the first time. And just found there was like these emotional moments and these big epic role-playing games that I was like shocked that they happened, and that I could talk to my friends about, like, hey, has anyone like played this game Chrono Cross, and like I got this character at this point, and they'd be like, what are you talking about? What I got this guy. I don't want him, I want the one you got. And like there's like just things you never knew were possible happening also. So yeah, I think I just always really loved computers and still have hoarded a lot of those old computers that have the floppy disks and stuff. We have it all in this like nostalgia display in one of our rooms. And just think really fondly about all those previous consoles and gaming devices for sure.
That's really awesome that you guys have all of that stuff still. I don't really have anything from growing up. My sister has our PlayStation 2, and I'm very jealous. I've been wanting to buy another PS2 of my own. And just once a month, I just look at, okay, what are the prices? Which ones are looking good? What's refurbished versus what is not?
Yeah.
I'm going to get one eventually. Um, we talked a little bit about this for my answer of this question before we actually hit record. But when did you start realizing that people make games, or first consider that that might be something you could or would want to do?
Yeah, it's almost like I considered everything but games until like the middle of college. I wanted to be a writer. So when I was like 5, I was like on one of those old computers, and my dad set me up with a word processor, and like I wrote my little story, and then like we printed it out, and he like bound it, and stuff. And I was always like, oh, I'm going to be a writer. So I was always just trying to write little short stories and fantasy stories and things. And then around like 12 and 13, I discovered anime. Even though I'm half Japanese, I'd never seen an anime, like known like what manga was before, or like known I was watching an anime before. And so then I was super into that, and I started drawing like my own manga comics and stuff. We don't have to get into it, but I was like a somewhat notable figure in the Dragon Ball Z community at
We
the
can totally
beginning
get
of
into
the
it. I loved Dragon Ball Z.
Oh,
Because,
I
like,
loved it
that
so
and
much.
everything from, like, Adult Swim, Cartoon Network-y stuff,
Yes.
like, that was definitely my introduction as a kid to anime.
Yes.
And it was DBZ first, and then I fell in love with Trigun, Yu Yu Hakusho, and a
Yes.
whole bunch of other
All
things from
the
there.
all the classics, the ones that came out here first, right? So
Yeah.
they're the ones that we kind of knew first in America. So yeah, I was like drawing my Dragon Ball Z fan comic and like scanning it in for the internet, like pre-teenage, and then I thought, oh yeah, okay, because writing's really hard. So if I could learn how to draw, then the things I
That's
can't
easy.
write, I know, is like going about this completely backwards. And then I was really interested in programming, so I was like learning, how to make my own websites and stuff. And I knew when I went to college, I was like, well, it's be like almost impossible to get a game job or something, or get a job writing. So I'll be like a programmer. So I started computer science, and I was like, I'll take like art on the side, like an art minor or something. Um, and then somewhere in the middle of like, I did a bunch of other unusual things, but in the middle of like grad school or the beginning of grad school, I was like, I should just really try for the game design thing. Like, like I might as well just try. Like it's what I really want to do. And I never felt like I was the best programmer. I think that looking back now, I think sometimes people can just be cruel and that computer science can be intimidating. Um, but I felt often like I would not succeed totally as a programmer. And so then I just felt like maybe if my heart is really in the writing side and maybe the design side, because at the time I didn't really know what design was. I just wanted to learn what it was and see if I wanted to do it. That sort of was like the path for me. So maybe, mid grad school was when I was like, I'm going to drop all of my cool hobbies I do for fun, going partying with all my anime nerd friends at conventions and like my friends that are working on a comic and stuff. And that was kind of like, not sure if that would work out. I was like, I'm going to drop it all and I'm just going to learn how to make games. Like, what does game design mean? Like, I'm going to read reading books. I'm going to see how I could incorporate that into my grad school work. And I also think I should really tell this story about Brenda Romero, who's definitely one of my icons, because I think that sometimes you just really need a nudge by someone who gives you permission to do something. And if you're a person that doesn't need that, you must be like super cool and much cooler than me. But I think a lot of people are kind of waiting for permission or waiting for someone that looks like them or feels like them to do something first. And there was a moment at an academic conference where I saw Brenda on stage giving a presentation, and she was so in her heart about it that she was basically like brought to tears. And I was shocked because I had never seen somebody command the control of a room but show their emotions and show vulnerability like that. I really thought that everything I had sort of subconsciously built up was that to cry or to show emotion was to show weakness, or that you wouldn't be considered respected, or something. Like something in my head had told me that somehow through what I'd learned in pop culture or academia or something. And seeing that she could do that on a stage and still be the person giving the speech and still be like the most important person in that moment in the room, I really thought that that was a pivotal moment for me to be like, someone like me who cries really easily and looks like sometimes small or cutesy or something, that I could command a room too. And I think that that was a very pivotal moment for me to say, like, I could also be a game designer. And I think that's important to say because maybe someone else is waiting for that moment. So that's why I like to tell that story. And also because Brenda Romero is extremely cool and everyone should get to know her. So,
Thank you so much for sharing that. And also just seconding everything you just said. I think that's really important for people professionally, creatively, and like even socially, whether it's someone saying something is like okay to do or pursue, or just having those examples of people doing the thing you were thinking about. The most relatable version for me, if I'm going to share a little personal story for a second, is
please.
just coming out as trans and non-binary. Because I didn't do that until I was 29. I know some people don't do that for much longer, or they just never get to that point ever, even if something in their head maybe says that they should or could. But it took a
Yes,
long
yeah.
time for me to both find more examples of people and then also to just have the social circle that I felt uplifted by and protected by before I then suddenly was like, wait a minute, I've been having these thoughts for a very long time. Let's actually unpack that over a very emotional weekend. And then talked to best friends about it. And came out pretty much immediately at that point. It was like talking to two people and then just socially out to everyone and out at work. Very soon after that, just took a little bit for the family to then also be a thing that I tackled. But yeah, not a professional example, but just people like that can be really important. So I'm glad that you found yours and that it helped get you here. So that's getting us through like grad school, career
And
wise. What then
congratulations, by
happens?
the way.
Oh, thanks.
And thank you for
Um,
sharing that.
oh, of course. Um, so post school, you didn't start your own studio immediately. So what did that track look like from getting there to here?
Yeah, so in grad school, I studied dance interfaces. So I studied ways to teach people to dance through games, like the using the Connect and Dance Central, and it was very fun. And our lab was like an AR VR lab, and so I was like the gesture control person. And and I, through some tenacity and networking, managed to get into a conversation about getting an internship at Microsoft. And I really wanted to go to Microsoft because they had the Connect. And I think that the way that gamers think about the Connect, if you're not familiar, if you missed this window of time, this was a depth camera that was attached to your Xbox, and you could just stand up and move around. And the tagline was, "You are the controller." And I think from gamers' points of view, a lot of times it was like, oh, it was a gimmick, or like the games were okay, but like the dancing games were good, but like other things were hard, and like there's some harshness to that. As an academic, we did not believe the Connect could possibly work because before that announcement, I had a $10,000 depth camera that I was using in the lab to track body movements. And there was a bunch of chaos where, like, one night someone just happened to be in the lab and had fallen asleep, as grad students do. And thank goodness he was there because that camera caught on fire and the whole lab would have gone up in flames if he had not been snoozing on the desk there and able to quickly dampen it. And it was in the middle of one of my user studies, and so we had to like quickly like call the company. I don't remember what country they were in, but I think it was somewhere in Europe, and be like, you have to assess a replacement, we've got people lined up all next week when we're in the middle of this study, and like the time is really precious. And that thing, like, it didn't work great. Okay, it did not track the body great. So when I saw the announcement on TV, I think it was the E3 announcement where they're
Probably.
doing the
R.I.P. E3.
hey, yeah, they're showing what the Kinect can do. I was like, oh my gosh, they're lying. They have to be lying. But then like when we got it, it was super cheap. I think it was like under $100, and we just had them all over the lab. Everybody's making weird games and experiments with Kinects because from an academic standpoint, it was so useful. And tons of papers were coming out in all the journals using it for like medical stuff or just like robot simulation things. So it really was an incredible device to a research community in a way that maybe a lot of gamers never knew about or didn't realize. So like without a doubt, I wanted to work on something with the Kinect. And I ended up working in my first internship in another place in Microsoft, which luckily went really well for me. My role was PM, which is like in other places in tech. I don't know if it's still true, but in Microsoft at the time, it was kind of like a hybrid designer producer role. So you're kind of organizing meetings and schedules and deadlines, but you might also be writing the technical spec. And I kind of didn't realize that this role was something that was possible. But until like we had someone from Microsoft visit us and explain the different roles they had. And then everyone was like, oh, Miko would be really great at that. So I actually felt kind of free to apply for this and not be coding during my time at Microsoft. So I did this app project as my intern project. It went really well. My intern manager was like, where do you want to work in Microsoft? And I was like, the Connect. I want to work at Xbox. Do you know anyone? Can you help me? And again, it was a process of, could you talk to so and so? And then this person connects me with so and so, and I have lunch with so and so. And I just like, sometimes everything just works out well. And there was a person who was in charge of who the new class of the next year for the Xbox interns would be. And they do not always have game design interns. And in fact, I think that they did not have it after that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I don't have any information about that anymore. But he was like, "Oh, your resume and what you've done, like, yeah, you should be one of the people we interview for a game design intern." And I was like, "I would like that very much." And I actually had been doing some volunteer work with Game Devs of Color, so it's a totally different thing that I've also worked with now. But Game Developer Conference, I was a volunteer with them. And so when I went to visit the current Xbox interns, they were like, "Oh, Miko, hey," like a bunch of people I knew were there. And so the manager was like, "This is interesting. Like, so you already know people here and you already have the credentials. Like, yeah, let's definitely interview you for this." It's just like I hope you can see that it's almost a series of opening opportunities and luck and chaos and being ready, because then the next thing that happens is I luckily passed the game design interview, but then at the time all the Xbox studios get to kind of look at all of the interns and kind of decide who's going to get the intern that they want. And I was kind of all set up to work with one studio, and they were like, "You'll really love him. You're going to love working with this guy. He worked on a dance game before. You're going to get along great." And I'm sure there was a path there that I could have taken. But I then spontaneously got a call from someone else, and it was the team that made Connected Ventures. And I just knew I was obviously going to say yes to that, whatever that was. But it turns out by the time I did the internship, by the time I came back as a full-time game designer, they were no longer making Kinect, they were making HoloLens. And so I then, for most of my professional career at Microsoft, was a designer of experiences for the Microsoft HoloLens, which was very secret for a long time. If you aren't familiar, it was one of the first, head devices, VR, AR devices that had no wires. It was completely like you could walk around and do all sorts of things that could kind of scan your room and create like scans of objects so it wouldn't interfere with them, and it could place holograms on them. And so that was very much like living the dream for me. It was taking all the technical stuff I was good at and getting to make player-facing or, consumer-facing experiences to show people about that. So there's a lot more we could talk about with that, but that was just sort of how I got my foot in the door and kind of stumbled forward into all the right places and was like in the place that I should be. I've been talking for a while, so I'll let you ask questions.
We're here to listen to you. So you and I can talk, but so we're getting your experiences and your story. But we'll stick with Microsoft for a second, because I believe working there is also where you met your husband.
Yes. So my very first internship, he was also an intern. They were working in the same area. And they just paired us up differently. So he was a dev working with a different PM, and I was working with a different dev. But we wish we had worked together. We just really vibed and liked each other a lot. And then, I was saying, this is funny because we make games together. That's what we do. And we get friends that are creatively interested in working with their romantic partner. We'll be like, "Oh, can we pick your brain?" And they'll be like, "I want to work with my husband, but we're both control freaks, so we can't figure it out." Or like, he doesn't have this skill yet, and I don't have this skill yet, but we're gonna figure it out. I'm always rooting for everybody. Obviously, I love the idea of like romantic partners working together. But I think what's very different about me and my husband is that we worked together first. It's like we met, we're like, oh, you have cool skills. I have these skills. Oh, you like to listen to me talk about my stories. And you're really good at programming and can finish things. And then, the relationship sort of grew out of after that, like after wanting to make things together, and we started making little games and apps together. But it's always so much a part of our relationship that we didn't have to like figure that part out.
Yeah, it sounds like it was part of the foundation of your professional and social relationships
Yes.
before a romantic one. So
Mm-hmm.
you're both at Microsoft. You start getting to work together on the side at some point, making apps and games. What
Mm-hmm.
comes after Microsoft, or what was the push to not be there anymore?
Yeah. So there is like essentially I formed Pretty Smart Games because we were kind of making these little things, and I didn't want it to be like I didn't really know the whole scope of like legality and stuff. Like I was like, what? Surely Microsoft's not interested in like this little art game, we made about a shark. But I feel like I need to understand this, better. And so I sort of thought I don't have any business skills at all, but I'll just like go onto the website and push the button that says create an LLC, and we'll go from there. And I really fumbled through a lot of that initial like, well, we can pay taxes, but we're not making any money yet. We just like put out an app, and there's like $10 came in from ads or something. Like I don't know yet what any of this means. And then it was like buying more books. Like I have all these ridiculous books that are helpful, but it's like things like, running a business for creative people, and like the playbook for understanding how taxes work if you're a business. And I
Sure,
really
that's a
just
very
stumbled
fun
through all.
read.
It's like it's also hard because it changes every year, and it's also like there's like the federal government, the state, the county, and the city. Everybody wants to tell you something you're doing wrong. um, but I just thought, I don't know that we'll ever become our own thing, but I just wanted to have like a name of something that we would like release our little artsy titles under, and then if there was ever going to be like a legal issue. And I think this is also very important to bring up is like during the time I worked at Microsoft, there was very clear language in your work contract about what you could do outside of working for them and what you couldn't. And so I encourage everybody to know that language wherever you turn out to work, because there are game studios and there are big tech companies that have extremely strict guidelines, um, that will basically say anything you do in any field we own, and including like if you're like an opera singer or something that has nothing to do with tech. And so it's just important to know ahead of time. But at least in the time that I was working there, I don't really have that knowledge now, but they were very my immediate bosses were very encouraging, because to them they're like, well, if you're out there learning stuff, we're gonna benefit from that in some way, because you're learning about things that'll help you at your job. And I think it's pretty common for people at some of these big companies to have little small side ventures they do. It might be real estate, or it might be, you know, I don't know, teaching basketball, or there's like hobby companies, maybe. I don't know. But it's just really important to know what the language says as well as you can. Um, so, for a long time, I thought, well, Pre-Smart Games is going to be that. It's just going to be like the little name we use if we want to create like a little quirky game jam or something. Um, and then I guess what happened was I was started to do a lot of mentoring at work, and I really love giving pep talks. You know, I'll give a pep talk to pretty much anybody about making games and making their dreams come true. I'm extremely sappy that way, and I think it's very annoying when people are like putting other people down and being like, well, what makes you think you could do it? It's like, well, if you told that to everybody, then nobody would ever accomplish anything. So I think I'd rather be a person that's like, hey, I don't know yet what you can do. If you have a dream to be, if you're not enjoying working on like servers at a huge tech company and you think you'd be more happy being a blacksmith, who am I to say you couldn't go and be a blacksmith? Or, you know, if you're like, I think I want to make games, but I've never made one before, and I'm an artist and a storyteller, I'd love to be the person who's like, great, these are game engines that will like lean into your strengths. Like you were mentioning Bitsy, I think, right, earlier,
Yeah, yeah, it was the very first
off
thing I had
camera.
tinkered with. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. There's like Pico 8, Bitsy, Twine, like RenPy. There's all these engines that are not going to like build the next AAA blockbuster, but they might be exactly what you need for your idea. And so I would rather you get to build your idea and you get like encouraged and I get to cheer you on into doing that than for someone to say like, hey, you can't do that unless you like spend 6 years learning to code and do all this stuff, or like you have to learn Unreal or something that's really advanced, and if you can't figure that out, just don't make games. Like I really hate that when people like shut the doors for others. So that's my little tangent, but what I'm trying to say is I really like to mentor and to encourage people, and maybe there's something I can tell them about like a game engine or a person they should meet or whatever. And I often do like the 5-year plan. So I would be like you're working at a big company. They If you don't have a plan for yourself, they're just going to keep making a plan for you. That's just how this works. That's how this society works. So you have to think, where are you going to be happiest in 5 years? Like if you close your eyes and you just really think, what am I missing in my life, socially, emotionally, mentally, physically, financially? Where do I want to be? And if you can imagine where you're going to be in 5 years, then you can start making a plan 1 year from now. Where could I be 1 year from now that's going to be on the path to the 5 years? And if you can come up with something you can be doing a year from now we can start talking about like this month, this day. What's the thing I could do today that's going to lead to a year, that's going to lead to 5 years? And I just really believe in that. And I guess I'm being really negative on the negative people of this chat, but
They
I just
deserve
feel
it.
like, yeah, it's just like I see these like YouTube videos sometimes that are just like, don't set goals, blah blah, like don't set New Year's resolutions. It's like it all has to start with the dream, though. Like, what are we doing here on this planet if we don't have dreams? And not every dream is going to happen, but dreams evolve. And so at some point in the middle of me like cheering people on to like change roles, go after what they want, people that I was chatting with started asking me like, well, what's your 5-year goal? And I was like, oh, that's a good one, because I kind of like, I'm here at this big company and I've got a great married life, and I get to make my little quirky things. And it's like it was time to set a new goal. Like before, the goal is to become a game designer, and I did that. And then it's like, okay, I'm so lucky I get to be a game designer at a big company and work on big projects. What would the next thing be? And I started to realize the goal was to like run my own thing. And I don't know if that's because I like to control things. I think it's because I have a lot of ideas, and I care a lot about identity and sharing personal stories. Like you mentioned, your story about coming out. Like I think that a lot of us have stories that aren't told through games or books as much as we'd like them to be told. If you'll allow me, I also want to say I think a lot of those stories are being told and no one's highlighting them. There are tons of beautiful people out there writing great books and making games from the perspectives of people that are not in the majority, and they are not always being highlighted. So I'm not going to ignore anyone who's already out there doing it, and it's awesome to see. But I also think like for people who feel like they don't always see themselves, you yearn to tell your story, and so I yearned to tell stories about like my family members that have passed away now, and their lives, and about, things that happened to me that were tragic or hard to get through mentally, or about my racial identity as a half Japanese American person. And in my case, my Japanese relatives have actually been in America since 1860, and my grandparents and my aunt, and other older relatives, they were incarcerated during World War II. So I tell that story just to show another area that it means something to me, and it's horrifying to see things like that happening to other people in a time where I thought, when I was young, I thought that's past and will never happen again, and I'm so sorry that happened, but it won't happen again. And so, like, I really feel like we have to have solidarity with people that are not like us, that go through the things that our families went through and are going through. So basically, I think, I wasn't sure how it was going to become like a business yet, but I knew in my heart that why I wanted to tell stories in games was to share personal stories. And I think by the time it actually started happening, by the time, I got an offer to work at a company that was outside of Microsoft, and I thought it seemed like a good opportunity to kind of leave the big company and experience a smaller one. And then by the time I left that company, maybe I have enough savings to like do just some consulting work. And then at some point it was like, no, I think I just have to go all in and really see what it's like if I'm doing nothing else but working full time on our games, and just live meagerly by our savings that we are thankfully built up, and see what happens. And I think that the dream shifted a bit, where it became not just about my own experiences and telling my own stories. There were two other things I think really came out of it. One was empowering our players, which is something we say a lot. So we like education games. Not every game we make is educational, but our last game was sort of a more romantic focused learn to code game. And it was, I
Code
like to think of
romantic.
it, code romantic, which I thought was going to be just the code name of the game. And then it was like, well, there's no reason to call it anything else. And I felt like that was sort of like what I wanted when I was 12. Like, I was interested in coding, but if I like went to like a little summer camp thing, it was like boys older than me that maybe made me feel like I shouldn't be there. And I'm glad if you didn't have if no one else had this experience but me, I'm glad the world has changed. But this was just what it was like for me. And so I thought, well, I love visual novels. I just really want to make maybe some way that would encourage people to think that they could code, because I just had met also a lot of people who told me that they were too stupid to code, or like they could never do that. They don't know math. They would never be able to do it. And I thought there's some kind of blockage happening there. And so Pretty Smart's games they sort of evolved from like, oh, we're just making like cute little fun things that we like and we're growing our skills, to being like, how can we like empower our players? Like, what does that mean? And I think it can happen in subtle ways and in more obvious ways. Like, I think the Spirit Lift is very, it's a game that's sort of meant to be like a chill game you can put on and just like disconnect from society a bit. Like,
That
I
is what
wanted
it's
to
been
make
for
it.
me.
Oh, good. We wanted that. We wanted a game that was another, like, I just wanted like relax and be in a place where I'm safe. Some people have been calling it like a low anxiety horror game, which I think is very fun. But I think it's like, it should be obvious to other people that like we have a very diverse cast in the Spirit Lift, and in the world building. We spent a lot of time on like, how did this little town in Colorado build up? I don't think that's how you pronounce Colorado. Is it Colorado?
Yeah, it's Colorado.
Something like that. Sorry about that if you're from that state. but we were like researching other hotels and how they built up, and we're researching like gold mining in the 1800s, and my husband Dale's heritage from being like the grandson of an Irish immigrant, Irish people coming over, to the Americas and to Canada. And then like my background as a Japanese person and having been, our family being here so long, but people still thinking, oh, you must have just got here. It's like, no, we lived here for like centuries,
Your
practically,
family's been here longer than mine has. Mine followed 20 or 30 years later.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. What do you mind sharing, like where your family's from,
I'm half
if you
Italian
know?
and then quarter Polish, and I've always been told a quarter Bohemian. Bohemia doesn't exist anymore. I think that's mostly like Czech nowadays, but it's my
Oh, okay.
understanding that like
Yeah.
both my mom's great grandparents and my dad's great grandparents came here kind of between like 1910 1920, somewhere in there.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's about the time that the hotel in our game was built, so that was like, I mean, there's always more research you could do, but for us, we really were excited to kind of dive in and figure out like what would the decor in the hotel be if it was built in this year? Like, what were the trends? And I'm definitely derailing because we could talk about that for hours. But what I'm trying to say is, as Pretty Smart, it felt like we could do things that were not only hopefully fun, but were things that we thought gave people like experiences that maybe made their lives a little bit lighter, a little bit happier. And also that we could build teams like that. So as we built out the team for the Spirit Lift, it became important to us to find people that maybe were super talented but hadn't worked in games before. We could be like their first big game credit so they could get other jobs. And people that, you know, maybe desired a little bit more of a mental health experience while making a game. It became very important that we were a remote studio. We ended up in 4 time zones, and the production side of things, it did take longer overall, but it was very flexible. People were working part time. People would let me know if, like, hey, they were going to have a rough month, they were moving. Can we work around that? Or, like, they felt like they were burning out, so they had to take a step back for a bit. Like, the mental health of everyone on the team was such a forefront for me and keeping everybody as happy as they could be and as respected as they could be. So now I think I feel like we might be building a very, not that we're the only ones to do it, but I think we're building a different type of studio than people think is the normal way to build a studio. And I know like lots of indies starting out right now are trying their own way, and I almost think we have to, because the way I thought it was going to work about 5 years ago was everyone telling me you're going to need to have investors and they're going to, give you a lot of money, and then you're going to get a brick and mortar building, and then you're going to have a publisher, and you're going to have to do this and that. But along the way, I felt like I was being very cautious because any one of those things could have spelled disaster for us, and would have meant really strict deadlines that everybody had to stay up all night to hit, or would have meant maybe somebody taking something out of the game that someone on the team felt was important to their identity that we had in the game. And I felt like I'd rather go slower and unconventionally, but feel like morally we did the best we could to do right by the game we wanted to make and the team that we wanted to nurture. So I'll stop there because that was such a long weave through everything.
But it
But
was
that's
a
kind of how we
great
got to now.
trip you just took us on. And so we're gonna get to purely Spirit Lift chat here in a second, but I'm gonna grab a quote of yours from a Microsoft Alumni Network spotlight on you
Oh
from,
my
I don't
god,
even
I don't
know.
know what it is. This will be
There's no
exciting.
year on here, so I don't know how old it is, but it is before the Spirit Lift is ever mentioned, so it's at least a few years old. But this quote from you is, I know who I am as a creator. My passions are making products and games that inspire and empower others. I'm always imagining a better, more kind, more understanding world. I just wanted to
Oh, I'm
highlight that because,
consistent.
yes, I really love that. And I think you've shown that just in the last couple minutes of talking about how this team came together and how you went about developing the game and treating each other and your employees and coworkers. How do you think that takes place, like within the game, or can be seen in the game, or is it mostly just about how it was going about being made, and then also making a game that can just be like a chill zone out? I'm playing something that is very light horror, like there's horror themes, but I'm not scared, so I can just relax and like vibe for the next 35 minutes of this run.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing I like to do, I don't know if they'll enjoy that I'm saying this, so we'll find out. But for every team member on the team, with me and Dale, my husband, we work together so well that we're very aware of each other's strengths and weaknesses and what we don't like to do and what we do like to do. And we almost have like a telepathic connection, it feels like sometimes. For other people on the team, I really like to kind of feel them out and see, like, hey, this is what you were hired to do, and I won't ask you to do more than this, like, in terms of our contract. But if you did want to work, if you did want to try something that's a little bit up of a bigger responsibility, or if we could provide that for you and give you that opportunity to try it, it sort of becomes a conversation, especially early on, because as you get closer to ship, you have to say no to things more often. And that's hard to do because you don't want to be the bad guy, so to speak. But I think if everyone is really trusting of each other and they understand why you have to say no or why it's not appropriate now, or if I can explain like why I don't think that works with the way the game is going and they can reframe it, it does, their ideas do make it into the game. And so when I look at the game, it's just not a game that could have been made. It would not look like this without the people we had, with our three artists and our composer. They all, I handpicked them for the game, and they all brought their strengths, but they also make decisions that I could never have made. I feel like a very long time ago I saw a quote from, probably attributed to someone at Pixar, but it was something like, always hire people who are better than you at what they do, and that I really have taken to heart. And so, like, for the music, for Ryako, who composed all the music, did all the sound design, like, she had not like done sound design in a game before, but she had scored a silent film and she had worked in podcasts, and I just didn't have any reason not to let her try. So for the demo, it was like, well, like, here's what the needs are, and I'll explain to you from a dev point of view why we need them at certain, like some of these have to be really fast or they have to be really subtle. And it's like she got this opportunity that maybe at a bigger studio she may not have gotten. I guess that's sort of the crux of it all, is that when you work with indies, there's so much work to go around. And if you respect everybody, there's opportunities to take work off of other people's plates, and try something that maybe another studio would say, no, no, you don't do that. We have a whole icon team over here. You think you're allowed to make an icon? Like it can be so unwieldy and so big, right? Um, and and that wasn't happening here. So like we got to just kind of give her this opportunity to do like all the creature voices, basically in the game, and the music and the sound design. Whereas at another team, maybe she would have just been, I shouldn't say just, because the music, I'm very biased, is stellar.
I
She's
want to shout out
incredible.
the like battle music. specifically is really good.
Yes. I'm glad you're enjoying that. There's so much about the battle music. Um, there was a feeling at one point that we wanted to treat the battle music like the different eras that the hotel had been through, because even if the kids are from the 1990s, the hotel has been here for like 100 years, and even beyond the 1990s. So she went wild on that, and we're, basically we have like a track that's sort of like from the 30s and sort of like from the 20s and sort of like from the 70s, and that was like the start of it, but then she would blend it with other things so that it almost gave it this like time travel-y feeling to the battle music. But that's all like her ideas, right? Like I tell them what the vision is or what the guidelines are, and if they have ideas that fit the guidelines, then it works, right? um, I think another great example, um, I mean, the character designs, right? Like, so Audrey Twig, our art lead, did the character portraits, but she's such a super mature lead and really good at like feedback and communicating. So she was saying how she was like, I don't know that I'm the best person to do the clothes. And so Allison Kelly, who I worked with on Code Romantic, she joined the team, and it was like, well, we know Allison is like a clothing genius. Like this is one of her super skills. So they started doing all this research on 90s teenager like trends and clothes, and there's like the Jinko shorts and the Jinko pants and like the different types of belts and the different types of flannel and the different types of crop tops, and my least favorite makeup trend, the like pale blue eyeshadow by itself. I was like, I can't do it. I can't put that in a game. But, and then once it was sort of defined, then Audrey was like, created the final paintings of every character. But always, the whole time, was so grateful to Allison and Leah, our 3D artists, because they all like would vibe and collaborate and work together. So I think back to what you're saying is like, I think that the Spear Lift is very quirky in a lot of ways. Like, I think initially people didn't really know what was going on. Like, okay, it's a scary game, but it's like a haunted house, but it's like a 90s haunted house. And I don't know that we can make a game that's like fully fits in a genre neatly, like, ever. I don't think that will ever happen to us, but like I think that, and I hope that they can feel kind of the humor and camaraderie. I think maybe another good example of that is the clown creatures and the clown aesthetic. The clown is a very annoying creature in the Spirit Lift, and he's supposed to be, and even the characters hate the clown. But the process of creating him was very hilarious as well, because nothing ever was logical. Like, Dale would come and join me after the art meeting, and I would have to give him an update, like, the clown's hair is made of ice cream cones. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, it's like a punk mohawk because of his 70s lore, but it's ice
But
cream
also
cones
ice cream.
because the ice cream. He's like, why is everything ice cream? I'm like, it's always been ice cream. He's actually not a clown. He's an ice cream worker that looks like a clown. And then just all chaos erupts in the house, right? So that was like constantly like there's a weird idea that went too far in art sync, and we're just gonna try to make it work anyway because we think it's gonna be funny at the end. So now it's here.
I love that. That boss was also so far the only time I have run out of turns in a fight was the first time I fought him. I got him down to 2 health, and then he spawned more
Oh,
clowns, and I was
yeah, he's
upset
really
with myself for
mean.
not having a better build that run. But I've beaten him since then.
Oh, good for
I'd
you.
love to talk about inspirations for a little bit, whether it is from the characters, because you have these four character types of physical, which are the jocks, spiritual, tactical, and gifted kids. Did you come up with those first and then figure out what the design would be like or what the mechanics would be like for those? Like, how did you go about landing on four to begin with and bringing those eight characters to life?
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a great question. You know, like the I usually think story first, so I was already kind of percolating on what the characters were and what I wanted their story to be. But for the Spirit Lift, it's one of the rare games where we actually worked a lot on the gameplay before we had the whole story in place. So the gameplay came first here, I think. We were just, you know, dissecting our whole board game and card game collection and just looking at the mechanics and so many other games we liked. And then you can't really get away with not referencing Magic the Gathering as one of the most iconic and important card games. So there was always kind of a sense of like there'll be different deck colors, but what does that mean? And how to differentiate their play styles. And I also have somewhere a box of the paper prototype of the Spirit Lift, where then that's just me writing with pen all the different things the cards could do. And a lot of thought went into the status effects. We want some type of poison, but what does poison look like in our game? What is it called? What does it mean? And so it began to be like, if these are like the 8 status effects we like, which status effects lean more towards certain gameplay types? And it started to naturally kind of break apart into 4 types of card decks. And it is a very unconventional game in that you don't really basically can't play with just one deck. You always play with like either 3 a little bit or a major deck and a minor deck, because you have 2 characters of one and a little bit of another. So how would that play out, you know? And like and you play a lot of other people's games and you learn from the best, but you also want to differentiate what's going to make it feel like a survival horror kind of comedy game. I think originally it was a lot more serious, and then by the time I came up with the name Nosferatu, I knew it wasn't going to be as serious as I thought it would be. And then like humor started to work its way in and make it a lighter tone overall in the game.
Which I'm personally
So
thankful for, because I am a giant baby when it comes to horror. I've been watching a little bit more over the last few years, but I mean, mostly campier things, older things. I like the Scream movies, but it's been really hard
oh
for me to
yeah.
get into horror games. Like, there's something about once my hand is on
Mm-hmm.
the controller, I am just
It's
like
very
inching my
intense.
way through places, and I
Yeah.
usually don't finish. So I'm glad that here there's like horror themes and aesthetic, but it's not like this is a seriously horror game that then
Yeah.
also
Well,
has the
yeah.
deck building.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, it was very intentional. Like it's a strategy. It's a turn-based strategy game with a horror aesthetic, right? And I think that I was really I'm a huge horror fan, but I also don't play a lot of the really punishing horror games. I play more the narrative horror games. Like, I played a lot of like the Resident Evils and the Silent Hills and the Dark Picture series stuff. But I think that there's definitely like a line where if you're too frustrated or too tense, you're not having fun anymore. And I think that there's in my hunch was that a lot of people out there actually really enjoy the story, but they don't want to be the one holding the controller because they won't win the game. They won't have the ability to like walk down the hall with the match and exactly time the moment the door opens and the creature comes out. But I feel like I picked this up somehow also even like in undergrad college years when 4 of us lived in 2 dorm rooms with a bathroom in between, and I had the PlayStation and Silent Hill 1, And like one of our roommates was a sorority girl who like never played games, but would just like be like, oh, "What's happening? I want to watch," you know. And I became the person with the controller that like showed them the story, right? And and so I think very early in the Spear Lift, it was about that. It was about like, I know people out there like the twists and they like the plot and they like the characters, but they don't like the feeling that something's going to get them if they go and get a glass of water. And could we give them maybe that experience of the storytelling aspect and let them find it all without having to watch another person necessarily, and invite them into a game that had less stress, like less anxiety. And like there's obviously a huge fan of all those games. It was just the thing we wanted to do with this game was very intentionally merge kind of the indie horror, like what's the theory behind what's happening here and the plot twists kind of joy of the narrative with, hey, deck builders are fun, they're chill, they're vibey, you can like casually do turns as you listen to a podcast or something. That was the almost the crux of the whole thing right there, was merging those two things together.
And I appreciate with that, like the story is there for players to discover and then to like read and really dig into if they want to, and if they want to just be fighting ghosts in mirrors and continuing up the hotel, they can do that as well. Because there's for people who haven't played the game yet, you have opportunities to find evidence throughout different rooms you're exploring on floors. Sometimes there's like a specific event that happens, and it will show you like if you make this choice, you have this chance of getting evidence or experience or getting a trauma card in your deck. That for most builds you won't love having trauma cards, but some you will. So you're unlocking that. You're learning more about your characters and enemies with every run and returning to the library. And I embarrassingly didn't realize for probably 6 hours that the game is an experiment. That you are kind of running a simulation, and these teens aren't actually like feeling this or experiencing it, and so it's okay if they lose. That you're a new technician conducting experiments using human subjects, and when those subjects perish, they won't remember what happened. The more loops you do, the more spirit powered transport will generate, and you get spirit points. And that is written by Zed, our predecessor. So there's this like other layer that you can miss if you don't read. But I really appreciate that aspect. Um, and right now, as a player, my favorite thing, the thing that is driving me to play more, even though I've beaten a few different bosses, and I have my go-to team, Team Tender Love and Capable is exclusively who I'm playing with right now until I just kind of unlock everything I can with them, and I will have to switch because in the
Oh.
previously mentioned story encounters that pop up, sometimes you need a flashlight to be able to do something, and none of the three characters in this team have any items like that. So that's also a way that the narrative and investigative parts of the game encourage people to try different characters and not be me. But the thing that's driving me right now is just like unlocking more stuff, more items, more lore, more character bits and evidence. And I think that's pretty awesome. Which reminds me,
Thank you, I'm glad.
oh, thank you for making the game. Um, what, if any, but I'm sure there's at least one, what game inspirations did you and the team have during development for the Spirit Lift? Because I've played a wide variety of roguelike deck builders. I'm not incredible at them like some people on No Small Games are, but I've played a lot of them. I adore Slay the Spire, but I've also played a lot of games since Slay the Spire that have the kind of branching map mechanic, which being in a lift going straight up does not have. So, was that an influence still, like as a game, or just did anything else pop up when you were making this? Of like, that's a fun thing, that's a cool mechanic. Here's
Yeah,
an
I mean,
idea.
So many, like really so many. And I actually, like, I went on for so long on the last one, I didn't talk about the horror movie references, but
True, like the
I'm a,
twins.
oh yeah, you got to do a few Shining references.
It's in a
There's
hotel, like you have to.
yeah, there's not as much horror media in hotels as you may think, because it's primarily dominated by The Shining and 1408. Stephen King will go in and he'll cover an area, and, but and there's some real life horror, haunted hotels that helped a lot, actually. So that was useful. But I'm a huge horror fan. I'll be happy to recommend to you, easier to get into low tension horror movies later, because I love recommending horror movies. I'm obsessed with them. So I'll dig into that a little bit, and then I'll come back to the games,
Okay.
which is like found footage was so big for this. I easily have watched hundreds of found footage movies. I'm starting a really small horror YouTube channel, and I have like my database of my top 100 found footage movies I'm going to post at some point, now that I don't have to make the game anymore. I can edit. But to me, I love the found footage genre for how real it feels. And so earlier there was a much bigger emphasis on cameras, and it was more like everybody would come in with a camera, and like you wouldn't necessarily be killing people, they'd be filming things. And so I think that was a huge thing for us. And then the archetypes of the kids kind of came from, like, the 90s horror high school classics, like Scream. Huge fan of Scream, and there's a ton of references to Scream in the game. And then The Faculty, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And there's always like these archetypes of like the popular girl and the jock and the slacker guy, but kind of letting those characters also twist those tropes and subvert them was really important to us. And then in terms of gameplay, I pull from so many things that I think you can see I hope you can see the DNA of it. I've had a few people mention that it felt like Persona, and I think that's completely true. I mean, Persona 3, 4, 5 is like one of my go-tos to think about mechanics and aesthetics and everything game design. And so, as we thought about what the dungeony feel would be like to move through a space and find the next elevator, that was an impact on us, on like, how are we going to build these like procedurally generated little floors, and just kind of studying how they did it in that game and in other kind of procedural dungeon games. I don't always like to go exactly only. I probably never go exactly in the genre of what we're making. We play all the good deck builders. I think another one of my secret skills that I will share with you for other game devs is to also play games that have no reviews or very few reviews, or games that have mixed reviews. So I've bought a few of those other people's games too, and I know, being a smaller indie, just because you have no reviews doesn't mean you made a bad game. It could just be that it came out at the wrong time. It could be that it was competing for attention with something else. I know the heartbreak, so I was happy to get a bunch of them, but it also let me see what people perceive as something they might not review, or something, or maybe at this price point it didn't feel right. Like, it helped me understand the business case. And I feel like I just felt like there's so many games that came out after Slay the Spire that felt a lot like Slay the Spire, and some of them did really well, but some of them kind of got hidden. And one of our big goals was to try to master this very delicate balance of, it's the familiar things you love, but it's different enough that you believe it's a different game. And that is really, really hard. And there were some decisions where at the beginning of playtesting, people I felt like didn't get it yet, and we had to really think about like, are we going to keep this? Like one of the weirdest decisions we made is having one team health bar, and though we have three characters, and that was kind of to make the game simpler, like reduce complexity in ways where the complexity doesn't make the game any more fun, it just gets in your way. As a horror game, we wanted it to be a first person game. This is actually before Inscription came out, by the way, so there was almost no one else doing first person deck builder. Almost everybody's doing side by side. When you do side by side, you can easily see the health bar of everyone, but it becomes more complex. Am I hitting the back row or the front row? Is this a move that's hitting everybody? And by making it one team on our side, it means that the enemy attacks coming in became simpler. Your attacks going out could be complicated still. You could hit everybody or just one person or a random group. And along the whole way, we were looking for moments like that that simplified the design. And I think we didn't realize it at the time, but towards the end we realized we were making a very approachable deck builder, and we started to discover that children really like our game, and that people new to deck builders really like our game, because it was maybe we removed some of the more complicated things so that they could learn it easier, which makes me very happy if that's true. Sorry, I have a bit of an asthma cough, so you might have to cut out a bit of coughing.
But I do think that that is true. Like, I do find this to be a particularly approachable deck builder. I say that as someone who's experienced with them and has still failed runs. I haven't won all of them. I think I've won 10 out of 17, but that's enough where it feels good. And I've found just kind of my build. So now that I'm like, I can consistently win doing these sorts of things with these three characters, I'm just going to keep making it easy on myself for a little while. But you can see with the 8 different characters that have their own different starting equipment and cards, like there's very different paths that you can take, including some that I don't understand how you can make good yet. Like relying on your own money, building up, or wanting to have trauma cards in your deck and stuff. It's like, okay, those are things that I will explore after I unlock some more stuff first. But totally, I think it's a very approachable game, and would encourage anyone who, well, either has played similar games in the genre like me, like play the game, but also if you haven't, it is honestly the game that would come to mind if someone's asking what deck builder type game would you recommend. This is the one. I've played
you're so kind.
A couple dozen at least, but like this is the one where it's like, okay, I think you can get into this. And part of that also is the length of the runs. They're not the shortest in the world, but to me they've kind of all been 25 to 35 minutes. Maybe if you don't get on that half a floor it'll be even shorter. But even though I love some games,
pretty short, I would say, actually, compared to most people playing. You're doing good.
For me, it's under 40. And you could just be going through every single room on every floor, even if you find the lift. I've done that sometimes. Other times I'm like, let's go up. But something like Slay the Spire, like your runs could easily be 90 minutes, 2 hours, and that's just a bigger time sink and less approachable for some people. So another win for the Spirit Lift, like being encouraging for more people to give it a shot.
And this is sort of like what you're talking about is the balance. The balance was really hard, and I don't think anyone ever gets it fully right. And in my opinion, is a pretty advanced game design technique. And a lot of what people do is rely on instinct and playtesting, which is great. It helps a lot, but don't underestimate the power of math. I think I'm pretty good at math, but there's some types of math I'm not good at all. Like linear algebra, I didn't really learn in school. But I'm pretty good at probabilities and combinatorics. And so when you talk about a problem like how long a run should be in a game like this was a key conversation throughout almost the entire game. And what I thought from the beginning was it's going to be a haunted hotel. It's going to be 13 floors high. We won't finish. We won't change that. But we can change how long a run is because we can change how big every floor is in the middle and the vibe of them. And so, you start to think about where do the shops go? How often is there a shop? Is there a concept of big floors and small floors? And at some point early on, it was longer, and I was stressed. There was like a good 2 months of me going. It's not even just that the number is long; it's that somewhere around floor 8, I'm starting to feel like it's long, and I need to keep understanding what gives it that feeling, and how to make it go down. And also, we were just getting like, some players tell you feedback and they don't know how to fix it necessarily, but they know what they feel. So we were getting a lot of people saying they wish there was a way to like jump to the end, like, like, oh, I wish I could just open the map and click on this door and be there. And I was like, well, if they're wanting to do that, something's not right because the something's not right because they're not having fun walking down the hall. And like, I get that we have an unusual retro style of walking that maybe people aren't enjoying as much, but no one said that after we redefined the size of the floors. The floors ended up being much smaller than we originally thought, because originally, even our first demo, if you've ever played that one, it had this. We only wanted 3 floors, so the second floor was enormous, so that you could try your hand at an event, you could try your hand at meeting the twins, and you could find the elevator, but you could also go to the shop. And like, people would be like, God, this floor's so big. Like, is it all gonna be like this? So what you've keyed into there that I just wanted to explain is like something like pacing and game balance and difficulty. I feel so grateful that people seem to feel good about what we did, because that was the thing that was like giving me nightmares at night. And I understand that I cannot possibly get it right for everybody, but a lot of work went into it. And for other people out there that are taking on this type of game, it's really worth spending time trying to figure out how that feels. And a quick way, not quick way, but just a way to get you started. If you're like, well, now what? Because I think, sometimes you listen to people talking, they're like, and make sure you balance your game. You're like, okay, what do I do now? Right? Well, it's all math. Like, and it doesn't have to be scary math. Okay. So you think to yourself, I want a game session to be 30 minutes, right? And you have 13 floors. So then divide 30 by 13 and you use your calculator. I don't have one here, but it's probably going to be less than 2 minutes a floor, right? Okay. Well, what's on the floor? There's rooms they search. Well, how long does it take to search a room? Well, it looks like it takes people like 10 seconds, 10 to 20 seconds. Okay, well, how long is a battle taking? Watch yourself do a battle. Is it taking 1 minute? Suddenly, what your 13 floors are filled with. Like, you can figure it out. And then you can say, well, based on this, it looks like we're going to have about 20 battles a run. Okay. And now you're opening up the door for a lot of other things. Okay, in our game, we introduced something a little unusual, which is experience levels. A lot of other deck builders, you finish a battle, you get to pick a new card. Well, we wanted you to be able to rummage through rooms. So we thought, oh man, I hope people are going to be okay with this. I hope they'll understand the fun of rummaging through a room and be okay that if you beat a battle, you get experience instead. What will we give you for experience? We'll give you card upgrades. Well, how many card upgrades do we want you to have by the end of the run? Okay, well, now how many battles are you doing? And it's actually not gonna be that scary. You're gonna see that the little algebra bits you're doing is like the kind of math you did really early in school. It's not that hard. But if you put it into a spreadsheet, you're gonna suddenly start to see, hey, I want people to finish a run with about 5 upgrades or about 8 upgrades. And you're going to be able to work backwards from that. And that's how you're going to get to like a better paced, a more flowing experience. That is what you're trying to do.
Thank you for that really in-depth answer there. I want to be mindful of your time, so I'm almost going to wrap things up, but there's a couple things I wanted to ask about, hopefully quickly. One of them
Yeah.
is the interactivity in the lift itself and just kind of like what is in the hallways, like the things that aren't in combat are necessarily driving the character forward, but like in the elevator you can click the 13th floor, you can click the buttons for all of them, it's not going to skip anything for you, but you can do that and click on a painting and have too many paintings pop out and things like that. What was the inspiration for having just that little bit of interactivity in the game? And is there anything, are there any Easter eggs or anything in there that I should be mindful of and trying to find? Or is it just kind of for the flavor
Yeah.
of it?
Yeah. So some of it comes from watching people play and like really early on, not super early on, but we went to Geek Girl Con, which is a family friendly convention in the Seattle area. And the kids, not only were the kids like really good at understanding how to play the game, but no child appeared to have any trouble sitting down and pressing all the buttons at once. And it's just a natural thing to do. Um, I think that like ideally you get the mandatory things out of the way so you can add the fun, the little joyful moments. And there's something that Audrey, our art lead, really wanted from the beginning, and we did our best to get it in, and that was time to play. She was like, I really would love if every artist had time to play, like things that they just think should be in the game and they just really want to like nudge and push. And so, in terms of the elevator, there is there is currently a secret and there will be more. So it's good that people know to push the buttons. There is a trailer, earlier trailer for the game that you can get to on our YouTube, Pretty Smart Games. Actually, two trailers where there are secret codes hidden in the trailer. And even in the demo, there is a secret you can unlock in the elevator. And so I haven't heard too many people crack it yet, to be honest. So I'm actually planning to do another riddle through probably on our Steam page. Like they do these like Steam event updates. So probably in a future update, I will put another riddle in there so to help people get there. And in terms of like sometimes you can click things and sometimes things move, that was a lot of like Leah, our 3D artist, who and this kind of goes back to the whole like the more you show you can do on a team, the more you can get to do, because I did almost all of the creature animations and I was doing a lot of the event furniture animations. But at some point, Leo was like, you're pretty busy and I can rotate this fan if you teach me how. And then she had finished all her mandatory work. And I was like, here's a place where you can play and you can add Easter eggs and secrets. So, and that was also in reference to the fact that people were saying, initially we just had one set of furniture in the elevator. And I would hear people say, "Oh, it's kind of interesting. It's always the same furniture though." So that was a very late in development ad that Leah had some extra time, and I was like, "Look, you can add a lot more furniture settings and we'll figure out code-wise when we show them to people and how that works." So I'll leave that a little bit of a mystery. But she also added Easter eggs. So I'll just leave it there. That'll be an Honest Indies exclusive because I know a lot of people playing haven't realized that yet. But when you call the elevator, you should play around in that room because there's a lot of very funny things that can happen.
Yeah, that's good to know. I've been doing it, but now I'm gonna have to do it more and go check out your YouTube and watch those earlier trailers and try to crack the
Yeah,
code.
let me know if you've solved
Um,
my puzzles because there's two riddles in there, and I don't know that many people that solve them. So,
Great, those are new goals for me when I play the game. And
yeah.
furniture-wise, actually, my favorite lift setup is there's chairs on either side, like a row of chairs, but they're like angled facing the door, and I just liked that vibe.
Oh
I was
yeah,
imagining like a spirit audience watching our
yeah. It's like a
characters or
little bit
something.
like an amphitheater, like a theater or something,
Yeah,
right?
a tiny theater
Mm-hmm.
and a lift. And then okay, last question, because you've mentioned having a shop, and a fair amount of games have something like that. The Resident Evil games are known for having some sort of shop character in many of them, but yours is Dorian, who is a werewolf or wolf person in a suit,
Yes.
very fancy, has wallpaper behind him with his own face all over it that appears twice on specific floor layouts and then is always on the 12th floor somewhere. And I recently found him somewhere else when he was restocking for the first time.
Mm.
What is
Mm-hmm.
the inspiration between him specifically? Like, not having a shop, but about him being the shopkeeper.
Yeah. Actually, you've set me up so well to tell you about something. So, in general, about him, I think that having a enigmatic cast of characters is really important. And so, not only for the teenagers, but from the beginning, I knew I wanted to get a very iconic cast of villains. And the shopkeeper role is always sort of like a neutral party that's maybe not on your side, but maybe not exactly against you either. And so I'm a huge fan of werewolves and wolves in general. So I can't tell you exactly when it came out. It may have just started from like a pun place because like he is Dorian Grey Wolf, right? So it's like, well, and then we started to think about like the like kind of lore of a Dorian Gray character who's maybe paying penance for something and you don't know what it is, or I mean, typically the real Dorian Gray is just sort of like a jerk who did a bunch of bad things, right? Um, but our version kept evolving, and he's also kind of like a character that could know things the teenagers don't know, but you're not sure how much he knows about what's really going on. So it gave us this opportunity to not only make this kind of sulky, mean looking wolf character that, you know, I've only heard one person on social media be like, "Marry me, Mr. Wolf," but I'm hoping for a lot more because we worked really hard to make him look as handsome as a wolf can be. And uh, he has his own backstory. Some of it's tied into some of the kids, and some of it's tied into the what's really happening in the hotel. And you can discover a lot of that through the evidence. But also, uh, there is one thing we really wanted to do with Dorian that isn't in the game right now, and is our sort of secret stretch goal should we sell enough copies. And I think that the I think it was going to be a pretty obvious hint, but the best hint I can give you is if you listen to the soundtrack, which you can listen to on not Basecamp, Bandcamp.
Bandcamp.
Listen to it on Bandcamp or Spotify. Ryako put it on Spotify, or on, you could purchase it in our bundle on Steam. You're gonna hear some songs on there that are not currently in the game, and one of them is a Dorian song. So I think you all are very smart, and I think if you notice some clues in the library and you notice the song, you'll know what we would really like to add to the game that we need a little bit more funding for. So that's what going to be my hope is I'm going to keep gently encouraging people to review the game, and then at some point I will probably say, hey, if we get it to this point, we really want to add this awesome free update for you.
I also like that he is something else you can click on repeatedly,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't love that you're doing it. He'll comment sometimes like, are you trying to pet me? Like, stop what you're doing.
Yes.
I like that.
And in the library, you do get a card unlock or a gear unlock for petting him enough times. So,
I have not gotten that
yeah.
yet. I'm gonna have to pester
Yeah.
him a little bit more when I
Yes.
play later. Well, thank you so much for this chat. This is wonderful. It's so great talking to you and just listening to you. You're just such a cool, kind-hearted person, which has been very clear reading about you, listening to you. I
Oh,
just love
thank
this so
you.
much. So obviously
Thank you for the
everyone should go.
opportunity.
Oh, thank you for your time. But obviously everyone should check out the game. There is a free demo. You don't need to buy anything to check it out. Also, Code Romantic is something that I've played the demo of and now I want to purchase because going way
Oh,
back in our convo, it is pretty clear just based off the demo that when there are the somewhat teaching you how to code parts, like you really tee up, here's what you should be looking for before we show you a bit of code, here's the two or three things to interact with, here's us at least guiding you on like what to be looking for and what some things do. So Code Romantic, you have other games on itch. There's so much for people to check out with the studio, but where would you like to direct people outside of wishlisting, playing, and reviewing the game? And where can
mm.
people follow you or just the studio in general?
Yeah. So the Spirit Lift, you can look it up on Steam. If you don't have the means right now, even dropping a wish list really helps, or telling your friends. Or a new thing I've been suggesting is telling your favorite content creators, like in Twitch chat or on their YouTube channels, what you might want them to play. It seems to be really helpful for them as well because they like to hear from their audience. And I had been taking a bit of a hiatus from Twitch, but I am on twitch.tv/drmikachu. And I previously was doing a lot of game dev. Like people watched me build earlier versions of the Spirit Lift and up until release of Code Romantic. I might be doing more like co-working now, just kind of like crafting and stuff. I need to like relax after finishing
Yeah,
this game.
breathe for a little longer.
Yeah, but I really love talking about games. So if you're looking to get into making games, you can still come hang out with us, and we have a really sweet and supportive community of people that like to make things, and just like to vibe and get to know each other. We're very supportive. And I'm also, I guess, most active on Blue Sky, again, as Dr. Mikachu. And our YouTube channel, I think, is Pretty Smart Games. And so we're going to be, we've been posting some shorts and things up there, and our trailers are there. But my husband Dale and I, we're so passionate about teaching people things and sharing our experience. So we're going to be trying to post more behind the scenes of how we made the Spirit Lift. He's going to be talking about dev tools, which is like a really exciting like subject about all the things he built so that a team as small as us could build a game as big as the Spirit Lift. And we also, wanted to talk about like the little games we made building up to the Spirit Lift because this was the biggest game we made, but we didn't start out from nothing. And I think people starting out should, hopefully be comfortable making smaller games and learning and exploring and having that experience building up to their big dream game
Yeah, the
that
scope
they want
of
to make.
Phantom Feast is much smaller, and I still haven't found the Phantom in the Spirit Lift. I've been told they're around somewhere, but I haven't found
Oh
them
my
yet. So
gosh, yeah, they're everywhere. They're actually Phantom from Phantom Feast is the mascot of their high school sports team. So the
So I
jocks
just need to be
often,
more observant, is what you're telling me. I have a jock on my team at
yeah.
all times. Okay, well, I'll keep an eye out for
If you
that.
get the sports drink, there's like a Phantom Fuel sports drink that looks legally unique, legally distinct from a famous sports drink.
Hmm.
But Phantom is on that one, so that's a early physical card you might see. fandom
Okay,
show
yeah.
up in.
I just gotta pay
Yeah.
more attention, is what I'm learning. But just
No, it's
thank you
okay. Well, you
again.
mentioned Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah.
So,
But thank you again for being here. One of my like selfish
anytime.
reasons for like, also being able to talk to people like yourself, and I talked about this on the Geeks and Grounds podcast, but whenever it's clear that an artist, a developer, a musician, whatever, is also just like a good person, it makes me want to support what they do even more. It's like, why I have that poster. And now I get to just be an even bigger fan of you in the studio because you're wonderful. Thank you for contributing keys for the game to the Ice Out fundraiser that Minn Max did. That's amazing. So you don't just talk the talk, you also like do it and show it and like help people and
Oh,
support
yeah. Well,
developers and also just people that really need it when the world is always feeling like it's falling apart. So, thank you so much for your time and just for being yourself.
I really appreciate that. And I definitely want to say that, like, you also are someone that we are so excited that you reached out to us because being, as you had kind of mentioned before we started, that you're on your own game dev journey, which we find very exciting. But also in terms of like the podcast and writing about the indies you love, it really, really meant a lot to us. And I think it's also hard to find when you're a dev, you're so vulnerable that hearing a kind word about your game before it comes out can be very rare because you feel like the things that people gravitate towards are more like clickbait titles and negative things and like I played this so you don't have to and like everybody can be so negative. So I think you also are a person of that I have great respect for, and I am so glad to have met you and can't wait for hopefully our friendship to grow, you know, and appreciate everything that you're doing. So thank you so much for taking the time with me.
Yeah, my two unofficial New Year's resolutions are to tell people whose work I enjoy more often that I enjoy it, whether that is writing about it somewhere or just replying to somebody on social, and leaving more Steam reviews because I've played hundreds of
Yeah.
games on Steam. I think I've only reviewed about 20, so I need to up that number significantly this year and just help spread games to
Oh,
more people.
yes, I love that. And not to completely derail your conclusion, but I too was thinking it would be exciting to have maybe some kind of like, maybe monthly is too frequent, but like a day of reviewing where like a bunch of us get together and we just hang out and review all our favorite games as like a activity
Could
because
be a
it
stream instead of a
yeah,
co-working stream. It's a
exactly.
co-reviewing
A
stream.
co-reviewing stream, exactly. I think I might have done it once before, and I only got through 3 reviews, but because I was talking too much. But it cannot be stressed enough how hard it is to finish a creative project of any kind, and how more often than not, it's just like you flung your heart into an abyss and you waited and nothing happened. And maybe one person replies and says, I wish you had added this toggle in your UI. and so you just really don't know sometimes if anyone enjoyed it. And it can mean a lot. You literally, I think I said this on a Blue Sky post recently, but like, you could be the reason someone makes another game. It could really be that big of a deal that you are the person that out of nowhere at the right time says, hey, I loved what you did. So I think that's a great resolution.
And I think that's a great conclusion to this episode. So thank you for everybody listening. I
Yeah.
hope you will listen to more as I just keep getting to talk to amazing developers about their amazing games. Bye.